Today, we are looking at a pretty extraordinary document. It's an urgent memo that a distinguished university professor sent directly to the Attorney General of California. And what it alleges is this huge, interconnected web of corruption that supposedly involves his own university, the legal system, and even the courts. So let's break down exactly what's inside. To really get a sense of how serious these claims are, you just have to look at this quote right from the memo. He's not just filing a complaint here, he's framing his entire experience as a systemic siege. That's incredibly strong language. So who exactly is making these incredible claims? Well, he's Dr. Mohamed Fayad, a tenured professor of computer engineering at San Jose State University. And in his memo, he lays out what he calls over 2 decades of collective injustice, a long-running campaign that he believes was specifically designed to just destroy him, both professionally and personally. The wording he uses here is really striking. Professor Fayad is absolutely certain that this isn't just some mix-up or a simple civil case. No, he frames it as a targeted campaign, a deliberate effort to, and I'm quoting him here, liquidate his academic and material presence. He says this was carried out by 3 main groups, which we're about to get into. Okay, so the first pillar of this whole alleged siege, according to the professor, started right at home, at the very institution where he built his career, San Jose State University. Let's dig into how he claims this all kicked off. According to the memo, the whole crisis really ignited after a serious health event. He has a heart transplant, and then he claims he was forced back into the classroom way too soon. And then look at this timeline. He gets suspended just 10 days before the semester ends. He calls that move not only malicious, but racist, and says it was all designed to completely derail his career. So you might be asking, what was the official reason for his suspension? Well, the memo says it came down to a charge of academic fraud. But he claims the university's entire evaluation of his courses was a sham. He says it was based on feedback from a tiny, hand-picked group of biased students and professors, and they just completely ignored his actual established grading records. He calls it a major crime against educational standards. All right, so the second piece of this alleged siege moves us out of academia and into the legal world. Professor Fayad claims that the very people who were supposed to protect his rights, well, they just became another part of the problem. I mean, that is a pretty stark accusation. He claims that after he reached out to nearly 100 different legal professionals, he discovered a system where justice, as he puts it, was basically bought and sold. So instead of finding anyone to fight for him, he says he only found brokers who just wanted to profit from his crisis. And he really breaks it down. In his letter, he sorts the alleged misconduct of these viper lawyers, as he calls them, into 4 different categories. He even names specific attorneys, accusing them of everything from collusion and extortion to using predatory contracts to just bleed him dry financially for absolutely no results. He even claims there's some kind of blacklist that prevents professors like him from getting a fair shake. And this quote, wow, it really captures the level of conspiracy he's talking about. He describes this one specific moment. A lawyer, he says, just bailed on him at the last possible second, literally right at the courthouse door. And to him, this wasn't just a simple withdrawal. He sees it as proof of clandestine or high-level orders that were designed to make sure he was left completely alone with no legal help. So we've had the university and the lawyers. Now we get to the third and final institution that he puts on trial in this memo, the court system itself. This, he says, is where all the different threads of this whole alleged conspiracy finally come together. And he does not hold back. The memo makes some direct and very serious allegations against specific members of the judiciary. He accuses one judge of just ignoring international court rulings and even validating forged documents. He claims another commissioner delivered unjust rulings that completed the cycle of persecution. And he says small claims courts were actually used to hit him with retaliatory judgments when he wasn't even there to defend himself. Okay, so after laying out this whole alleged 3-pronged siege from the university, the lawyers, and the courts, the memo really shifts gears. It gets into the profound human cost of this whole ordeal and makes one final urgent plea for someone to do something. This quote, it just drives home the personal stakes here. He's not just talking about a legal problem or a financial issue anymore. He's framing his entire situation as a humanitarian crisis, what he calls a slow execution of a 75-year-old scholar, brought on by all these systems failing him. And according to the letter, Here are the real-world results of that slow execution. He says he's now living in a motel, can't even prepare his own food, all while millions of dollars in his own money, his entitlements and assets, are supposedly frozen by his university and the state's Employment Development Department. But Professor Fayad isn't just laying out problems. He's demanding solutions. He ends his memo with 4 very clear, very urgent demands for the Attorney General. First, launch a federal investigation into all this alleged collusion. Second, restore his financial rights by unfreezing all his money. Third, make sure the judges and lawyers he named face criminal accountability. And finally, provide him with immediate protection and dignified housing.
You know, the memo ends with that classic legal principle: justice delayed is justice denied. And that really leaves us with a huge question. When a citizen lays out such a detailed, serious, and direct accusation of corruption against the very systems that are supposed to protect him, what does a just response even look like? That's really the question at the very heart of this professor's plea.